Welcome to Starlight Talks. This week I'm joined by Alex. We're talking about living with ADD, ADHD. We do this every week on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Next week Charlie will be back and we will be talking about big changes. Don't forget to check out the OurTism website and my articles on there and everything we have to offer, support groups, social groups, and life map. This week we're talking about ADD, ADHD with guest speaker Alex. I have some helpful links in the description, which you can check out at the end of the video, that will send you to a YouTube channel called How to ADD, which has some very short, very brilliant videos that talk about what it's like to have ADD and all the struggles that it comes with, and different useful tools and explaining what it is and dealing with it. And then there's also a link to the bullet journal, which was created by a man with ADD who found a way to create a calendar for those with ADD, because that's something that a lot of those with ADD struggle with: time management, scheduling, everything that comes with the calendar. And a bullet journal is a useful tool, and we'll talk about journaling, we'll talk about ADD, we'll talk about all those things in this video with Alex. If you have any questions, please start leaving them. We'll eventually get to them. We love to interact with you guys. Let us know about the quality of the video, the sound, anything you'd like to let us know. Thank you, Lillian, for joining us, Grammy and Papa for watching. Everyone comment, let us know who's watching so we can give you a shout out. So I'll give it just a few minutes for people to join and get settled in. This week we're talking about ADD with guest speaker Alex. All right. Do you want to start with just a short description of what ADD is like?
Sure. So Chloe will
Or it could be a long description.
Chloe will interpret what I say, because I don't make a lot of sense all the time. So for like ADD, ADHD, your mind works a million miles a minute. You're thinking so much that you can't really pick one topic to stick to. And so it's hard for you to stay on track. So like she said about time management, that's one thing.
So there's like this misconception that all ADD is not being able to focus.
Yeah, that's not true.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not being able to focus. It's not being able to.
It's like your thoughts are moving so
fast that you can't comprehend what you're thinking, essentially, and so you become very impulsive and you don't think things through. So there's a lot of consequences to that.
It's like having to move really quickly.
Yeah.
Like get your words out fast so that you don't lose.
And then
your
that
train
also
of
brings
thought,
on like
right?
Anxiety too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like you speak your thoughts out loud and
a lot.
You're not always aware of the consequences of your actions.
I'm not even aware that I'm speaking out loud, because that's what I've always done. That's how I process my information, is I speak it or I write it like in my journaling, and that helps me process the information, because it slows down what essentially does, it slows down my thought process to help me understand what I'm saying and what I'm thinking. But if I say it out loud, people, hear it, and so they feel like they have to respond to it. But a lot of times it's just me talking to myself and thinking out loud. It's not me talking to someone else. There just happens to be other people there, and it's usually during mid-conversation, which is not helpful at all.
So to me, the biggest difference between ADD and autism is with autism, we don't have everything separated in our thoughts into like nice little bins. It's like when you grab onto one thing, like a whole bunch of things come with it. So it's like, here's the whole topic of animals. Where when you want to talk about animals, it's like you're in like one of those ball pits where like the balls are flying everywhere. Yeah, and like you have to grab one. You're just gonna grab a random one, right? You're struggling.
It's a struggle just to bring out half of that.
Where it's like it is neat, and each ball is a topic and a complete thought, but you like can't grab the right one.
No, yeah.
It's like moving so fast, and that's why you saw it for a second and then it was gone.
Yeah.
Or it was almost in your hand, it slipped away.
And that's why a lot of things are on the tip of my tongue.
Or I remember it's a yellow one, but where is it? Or it's a red one, or it's next to that one. Right? No, it's not.
Yeah. And then I also connect things super weirdly, like...
Oh, we call it leapfrogging when we're like, well, it's like this, but then it's like that, and then it's over here.
Like, we could be having a conversation, and the color red comes up.
Yeah, we'll be talking about something like...
Benji.
Like Benji. We're like, oh, Benji's so cute, and his favorite ball is this red ball. And she's like, oh, I know what... I have a red shirt, and like I also have a red pencil that I love to draw with, and I love sunsets when they're red.
It just bounces, and then I get stuck on that one thing, for a while. Yeah. What else? Having an outside person see it is so different than me experiencing it, because a lot of times I don't notice that I'm doing these things. I'm definitely more aware of when I'm having conversations with people and speaking out, but they're like, I'll forget complete conversations that I have with people.
Forgetfulness is a big thing, which is why you write down
everything. Basically.
She has a list of like her favorite movies and TV shows she watched this last week, and just lists of everything. And then she has her journals that she writes what happened that day, and she'll go back and like just read past it. Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, like if it's like if I had a really fun night, then I will essentially make a schedule of like what happened that night till I remember, which is so weird, but it helps me when I go back and look at that schedule to remember better, because it's like a snapshot of what happened.
To track down that thought, because you have it in the book, so you can just go, oh, I'll just open up my journal and I'll go straight to it.
Yeah.
And it'll pull that out for me, because I'll be looking at all that.
It's essentially a snapshot of what my day was, and it helps me remember things better. And it's fun for me because it's therapeutic in a sense.
So in bringing up the bullet journal, which is a useful tool, and I think you bullet journal without knowing that it's a bullet journal. There's a system that you can find, and it's all online. You can get any book and any notebook and turn it into a bullet journal.
I've seen those are cool.
There's all these systems you can use, like their tracking system, which could be like, what time did I go to bed? What did I eat that day? Or it could track, what did I buy this week? And all these different things. Then you can go back and look and go, oh my God, I've been waking up at this time every day, except for this day, what happened that day.
Yeah.
You know, and it will help you to remember, oh, did I take my medication? Oh, did I? And there's that kind of thing you can do. There's also lists, ways to keep your doodles in there organized. So like if you like are in the middle of writing something and then you decide to doodle, there's a way it organizes where you can find that list again, and you can still doodle when you need to doodle because you're not always like on that same thought. So you can go, oh, I can go back and find that, where like I know you've like written something down somewhere and go, how do I find it?
Well, and then if I don't write in my journal, but I write on some piece of paper, I'll like tape it into my journal if I want to keep it too.
Yeah.
It becomes a hodgepodge of like all my thoughts and memories and like
Goals
everything. Yeah, everything.
Dreams.
Yeah, everything. Really.
Because you have like lists of these are the movies I watch, these are the ones I want to see.
I do.
These are the things I want to get done tomorrow. These are the ones things that I want to get done in my life, like my bucket list. And it changes too.
Yeah.
Like you cross things off, go, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And like all of that is also part of the bullet journal. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I definitely make lists when I'm doing homework. Like, I'll number them like 1 through 5, however many things I have, and whatever's most important I put first, and whatever's least important or is due later I'll put last. And every time that I cross something off, it feels so good. It's an accomplishment for me because then I know I'm staying on task and I've accomplished something and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It keeps me motivated, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like that. That's a tool that I've used for a really long time, and that's really helped me. So I really like lists for school as well.
So do you want to go through some childhood stories, maybe the diagnosis process?
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier today. So I was diagnosed at 7 years old, and reckon this is back in like the early thousands. So that was really young. And when my parents found out, they were like, they didn't really know what to do. Like none of my other siblings had a learning disability. And so they talked to all the doctors. They, did as much research as they could that was available at the time. And they just kind of had to work with me and figure out. And they decided to put me on medication. Not every parent decides to put their child on medication, and people who were put on medication don't always choose to stay on medication. But for me, medication is something that has helped me. And if I'm not on medication, Chloe can testify that I'm very different.
Well, and I also, like I brought up with there, like medication doesn't take away anxiety.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't take away you having ADD at all.
No, but
like,
you
still have it.
I definitely still have it. There's no getting away from that. But it helps me stay in the moment, and it helps me process things better. I don't want to say it slows down my thought process. It helps me focus on what I need to focus on and what's important. It helps me to
organize your thoughts.
Organize my thoughts more, and to notice what's most important, what I need to be focusing on. So like if Chloe and I are having a conversation, but I notice some other people having a conversation in the background, when I'm on my medication, it helps me to choose the conversation I'm having with Chloe or listening to with Chloe and someone else, rather than be focused on the conversation that's behind me. And there's many different types of medication that do many different things. I've tried a lot of them. So I was diagnosed at 7, and my mom has told me this funny story. When I was like first diagnosed, the first time I took the medication, I used to really want ice cream before dinner. And if I didn't get ice cream before dinner, I would throw this huge tantrum, scream, cry, and till I got ice cream. And
yeah, because there's the hyper focus that happens
Yeah.
too, not just the inability to focus. There's also that extreme, this is the only thing I can think about, nothing else exists.
Yeah.
So with the ice cream, it's like, I want the ice cream, I want the ice cream. And
Yeah,
no matter
now,
how
now.
many times you say no, I want the
Yeah.
ice cream and I want it now. And I want the ice cream and I need it now.
And I couldn't, my mom would be like, no, but like after dinner, and I couldn't hear the after dinner. Like I couldn't hear it. But the first time I had the medication, my mom was like, I said, Mom, I want ice cream. And she said, no, but not right now. We have to wait till after dinner. But after dinner, you can have ice cream. And I said, okay, like, no problem. And my parents were shocked. They were like, apparently they were stupefied and they were amazed. So I'm sure that's an indication of what medication can do.
Linda has a question.
Oh, Linda, hi, Grammy.
Did you have to go through trial and error to find the right medication for you?
Yes, because there's different dosing. So there's a lot of, you typically start with a low dose from what I remember. And you figure out what your right dosage is, and you and doctors know what like medications tend to do for people and what you're looking for in a medication. But a lot of it is trial and error and finding what works for you. And I definitely had to go through that. And when you're diagnosed, to get diagnosed, you have to be tested. And so when I was diagnosed at 7, I did it like every other year. I did testing every other year till I was like 12. And then when I was 12, it was like every 2 or 3 years until I was like 16. And then when I was 16 till I was, and I only had to do it once from when I was 16 till I was like 18. And then my senior year of high school, I did one more because of, for college. And I haven't taken one since, but it's a lot for a kid to go through or anyone to go through because it's like a 3-hour test. And there's varying things that you have to do during this test. Like you have to repeat numbers and letters forwards and back.
Yeah, I think it's the same test I took.
Yeah.
For autism.
And you have to like hear stories and repeat details and like do puzzles. It's like a weird test. And I had to do that so many times, and there were times where I had to take tests like more than once in a year because of various reasons I don't remember.
Probably fine-tuning
Yeah.
your learning disability versus ADD.
Yeah, or like, I don't know. There were various reasons why I had to retake it more than once in a year. That happened a couple times, and it was very frustrating for me because I hated, because we had to drive for like an hour to go see the person who was doing my testing. And as a middle schooler, that wasn't fun. Was not how I wanted to spend my weekends. But so yeah, getting diagnosed is a long process and it's intense.
And a continual process.
It's continual until you're like 18, essentially.
Even after, my understanding, Alex, even after, so you have the diagnosis and now you're an adult, your body changes. You constantly should monitor what's working, what's not, and maybe need adjustments.
Oh yes, there are, just like with any medication, the medication, the dosage, or whatever you're using at that time is going to work for only a certain amount of time, whether that be a year, or 2 years, or 3 months. You know, it works so differently because bodies are so different and your brain works so differently in terms of how the medication works for you. So I do have to monitor that, and I do have to go to a doctor to make adjustments if needed, if I notice changes or if other people notice changes. And so that's also something. It's an upkeep. It's not, oh, you find out here's
one and done.
It's not a one and done. It's definitely a lifelong process, and in terms of, you know, medication and you know, learning how to, you know, cope, because, you know, going from like middle school, high school, and then to college, you know, there's so many different situations that I've been in that my ADD, ADHD, I've had to, you know, do things differently to like not survive, but, you know, just adjust to the lifestyle. But it is a lifelong thing, like with basically every health issue. I mean, unless it's a common cold. But yeah. Well,
you have anxiety that goes along with ADD. I think that's common with a lot of special needs and learning disorders and stuff like that with the atypical world, due to the world we live in and what we have to face, especially with school and with being different and having to fight for accommodations and just people who even have good intentions but say the wrong thing because they don't quite understand that where you're coming from, and that when you say certain things, it's not because you're mad at them or because of the same reasons that they would say it. It's because like you're dealing with a whole different world of thought. And so there's anxiety, right, with communication, with meeting new people, with all those kind of things. Do you want to talk about some of your anxiety?
Yeah. Anxiety, how I experience it, and it's individual for every person, as I'm sure Dara said, and you know, hers is different from mine, and mine's different from hers, and hers is different from Chloe's, and like all this, everyone else. For me, a lot of it has to do with time. Like testing freaks me out. I have test anxiety, which is one of the reasons why I get extra time on tests, and also because my brain processes differently. Learning to drive was one thing that really stressed me out. I had a lot of anxiety about learning how to drive.
Was the anxiety like worried you're gonna mess up, you're gonna get it wrong?
That I'm gonna like get in a crash, and because when I was learning to drive, I had been in one car accident that obviously I wasn't the driver. So like, and most people aren't in a lot of car accidents, and you know, that was like the biggest deal for me, was not getting in a car accident. And going to college, that stressed me out a whole lot. When my dad left, I like cried and he had to come back because I had never lived on my own. And I didn't know what that meant, and my roommates weren't moved in yet because I moved in like a week early. So I needed a support system, and I didn't know anybody there. So that was really scary for me, and it gave me a lot of anxiety. And I have breathing strategies to help me cope with that. I have a weighted blanket, which is really nice. I watch movies. That's a great therapeutic strategy that I've used for a long time. Yeah, anxiety. I breathe heavier. I can't think straight. Period. I pace. A lot of times I call Chloe and she has to talk me down. A lot.
You have a big fear of losing things?
Oh, yeah, I can't. If I lose anything, it's the end of the world. Like, even if it's the most, like, unimportant thing.
I remember you calling me because you lost your ID
Yeah.
card, the college ID,
Yeah.
which you can buy for like $5, depending on the college.
It's like $30
a new one
for us.
for like $5 to $35, like something like that. So you could just go in and get a new one, no big deal. Remember that being a really, really big deal for you that you lost that.
Yeah. Grammy has a question. I don't know if it's about anxiety. So
Now that you have completed 2 years of college,
3 years.
3 years, how has the medication assisted in your grades and communicating with your fellow students?
Oh.
And then there's a continuation.
I read that.
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
Oh, a lot. First of all, I'm able to like follow conversations. Like lectures are really, really hard for me because I just have to sit there and listen to a professor talk for like an hour and take notes. And that could be really difficult for me.
Yeah, I know, because your medication wore off at night.
Yeah.
And now you have some extra smaller doses that you can take at night. But I remember you would come over and I could tell your medication wore off, and then you'd want to drive home.
Yeah.
And that would really scare me because you make really impulsive decisions.
Yes. As an already impulsive person, I become more impulsive.
And it wasn't safe for you to drive because you just didn't have any comprehension of your consequences that could take place. You're just like, oh, this seems like a fun idea, and weren't able to think it through. Not that you were a different person, not that you're anything like that, but you could only focus on the couple things in front of you that you were thinking about. There was nothing else.
Well, I would get stuck on one thing, and for some reason that was the one thing.
And I mean, you could jump around, but that one thought you were having in that moment was it. Where when you're on your medication, you do have those impulsive thoughts, but we go, hey, Alex, just think about it for a minute, and you can allow yourself that time to process and go, okay, that's not a good idea. Or, oh, that is a good idea. You allow yourself that time to take a second and take a breather and go, okay, should I say this? Should I have said that? Should I act in this way? Should I apologize? All those kind of things. And then when someone says something to you, you can even go further into that process, where without your medication, I would be like, you cannot drive. And you're like, no, I'm fine. I just want to go home. Bye. And I'd have to physically take your keys from you and go, you are not leaving this house. Because you were so stuck on, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I have to do right now.
Yeah. And I have to say that when I do drive, when I have driven without my medication, which hasn't happened to me in a long time, because now I carry medication in the car, whatever car I'm using, and I carry it in my purse.
Luckily, nothing happened. Luckily, nothing has happened. Or she's not.
Someone was watching over me. I've never been in an accident.
We're just gonna put that out there. Nothing happened.
Yeah, never been in an accident. Ever. So I was always very lucky. But I don't recommend driving without your medication.
Well, I mean, that's a personal choice.
At least for me.
Yeah. Just be aware of the choices you're making.
And listen to your friends, because they probably know what's best for you.
Yes, no one's gonna tell you when you don't drive unless they're concerned enough about you. Like, no one does that for fun. That'd be a weird thing to do. Alex, it'd be really funny if I just took your keys and drive home.
And I'm the one in our friend group who drives. So if they're telling me, Alex, you're not driving, I'm like, you're probably right. At age 21, like, I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I probably shouldn't drive. Here's the keys. And we'll call an Uber or whatever. And but now I'm more aware, And I'm like, how late are we going to be out? Because I don't want to be driving when my medication has worn off. So I am more aware of that. So I do know how to like make accommodations for that. What else?
Do you have any stories of encountering comments or people who didn't quite understand ADD and have said things hurtful?
All the time. A lot of it, most teachers and professors won't say anything, usually because they don't want to get reported. Chloe has stories that I've heard. I'm like, that's so weird. I've only had a few of those, but they weren't in college. It was like in like middle school, where teachers didn't believe that I had a learning disability for whatever reason, because I think I clearly show it, especially when you talk to me. But a lot of the time it's like students who they see that I leave the room to go take a test, and they'll see me on campus and they'll be like, why did you leave the room? And I'm like, oh, well, and I'm pretty open about my learning disability, and I'm comfortable. Not everyone's comfortable sharing with why they leave the room or take testing elsewhere, but I'm very comfortable with it. And so I'm like, oh, well, I have a learning disability, and, you know, I take it in a quieter room because I need it to focus, and I get extra time. And a lot of people will be like, I don't believe you, like, ADD is such a fad, like, it's not real, like, I, read this article that said that it's, a joke to, for kids to, do better on tests than other people, and it's so not true. My brother, hates that I get extra time on tests, and he just doesn't understand that it's something that I need. It's not, I couldn't take a test without the extra time. I can't take a test in a room with everybody else banging their pencils and pens, clicking them. Like, I can't focus. Like, even in the testing rooms, I do have issues. Like, I'll have to tell people, like, can you not click your pens? Can you not tap your pencils? Like, so, like, even in a quieter testing environment, there are still issues.
Yeah, because some places there's still 5 people taking a test in the test room. Sometimes there's individual rooms. Other times you're still in a quieter room, but there's still a couple.
There's still distractions.
Maybe you're in offices with faculty. Maybe you're with a couple professors. Maybe you're with a professor that's you don't know. Maybe you're with other students. Maybe you're with a peer mentor. There's so many different ways that this is done. So it's not always you're by yourself in your own room able to just do it with no distraction. Sometimes that's not available.
Well, and sometimes it's not even other students that are distracting. Sometimes it's the lights. Sometimes they flicker. Sometimes it's the clock.
Someone walking by a window. You hear footsteps outside the door.
It's so many different things that can distract you.
The classroom next door is watching a movie. There's so many different things.
I think it's a topic that we're going to address is when you're not believed.
When you're not believed.
Well, I think it's a great point you brought up, Alex, and I think we're going to address it on another night of you don't look like you have autism is a really big one.
Yeah, and an invisible disability.
Exactly, and the challenges of having an invisible disability. So you brought up a really, really great point that Chloe's written about, and we're going to address in depth.
Like your brother's point was something like, well, in the real world, you don't get accommodations. Like if you're a doctor and you're performing surgery, you just have that time.
You don't get time and a
extra
half
time
for a surgery. And I'm like,
and it's
I'm not gonna be a doctor.
But you prepared for how many years to perform a surgery, and you practiced,
and you did
and had
mock
simulations,
surgeries,
and you watched other people do it. and you did it and you learned in your own way how to perform it before you ever step into that room and do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that learning process is different. The actual surgery may not be different, but learning how to do it, that's where
like
it's
you
different.
you don't want a doctor that just like slided
that
through.
got a C- in biology.
Yeah. You want them to know what they're doing, because
Yeah.
I don't want, if I have to get an appendix removed, I don't want them to remove my kidney. Like it.
That's why a lot of these diagnoses have that learning disorder, not a functioning disorder, not living disorder, not disorder in general. There's a learning difference.
And when you're in a surgery, you're surrounded by like
you already
6 other people
and you
too.
already know it.
Yeah, you already know it at that point.
When I know something, I don't think it takes me longer to do it than anyone else, but actually learning it, that's what takes me longer.
Also, I think there's confusion with the outside world that hasn't lived close to someone with a disability, that accommodations mean it's dumbed down. So
that's a misconception too, that you get twice the amount of time as us. So it's a lot easier for you to take that same 40-minute test in 80 minutes. Well,
or that the test has even been modified for you.
Yeah, that's not. Well, I've had people ask me that.
And I have had accommodations where I don't have those questions in multiple choice that are all of the above, or none of the above, or some of the above. I have had those eliminated and sometimes that means the teacher's lazy and just gets rid of them and doesn't replace them with anything else, and then I just have like 2 answers. But there's a reason behind that, where if I was given that, I would not be able to answer that question, because my brain doesn't work like that. That gives me way too many choices, and that already giving someone too many choices is overwhelming. Giving someone with autism like me that many choices is overwhelming.
And they're designed to trick you.
It's designed to trick me. And for someone who doesn't understand being tricked, sarcasm, even figures of speech a lot of the time, that is super confusing for me. And I will miss that question every single time. I will get it wrong every single time. And it's not making it easier for me. It's leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
I have slow processing. She, in a way, has slow processing. That means it takes me twice as long to
just read the question.
Formulate an answer, and then write that answer down. As I've talked about before, it's like translating it a couple times. And with ADD, it's the same thing, trying to recall that, trying to grab that.
And it's a lot of it is comprehension.
Yeah.
Like I didn't learn to read, which has nothing to do with comprehension, till like 2nd grade.
I'm sure if language was created by someone with ADD, it would look very different.
Oh yeah.
And those questions would be worded very differently if it was written by someone with ADD. Would be, these questions are written for the typical community, and if you're atypical, it takes you a while to figure out what the question is and what it's asking, how to answer it. And so that could take you twice as long. It's like someone reading in a second language. But once we know that answer and have practiced it for years, and it's part of your profession to recall that, we have tools like scripting, like all these other things, where we can recall it instantly. But with new information we've just learned, taking a test on that, it's going to take longer to recall that information than information we've known for years.
Yeah.
Like you asked me my age, I'm 21.
Yeah.
I'm turning 22 in a couple months. I'm going to keep saying 21 because that's been with me a full year. And it'll take me a while to be like, okay, now I'm 22.
Another misconception associated with accommodations is also intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know you both had seen that in high school, probably even middle school. So having accommodations, just like you said, it levels the playing field. With slow processing, it allows you to pull that information properly.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you are so freaking smart.
If without accommodations, I would not have graduated.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that.
Talk about when you switched high schools and you didn't have accommodations for almost 6 weeks. Or I can help you, but
I can talk about it. So, I switched schools in 11th grade from a school that was very accommodating to a public school. And we were in the process of going through all the paperwork to get an IEP done and trying to set up all the things that allow me to have accommodations, because with public school you have to go through a different process than you do in a private school to get accommodations. And while that was happening, I was not receiving accommodations I was supposed to get, and I wasn't sure how to get them because it was a whole new system I was working with. And I was dealing with a counselor who wasn't helping me out. I would go to her with questions, and she would say, well, yeah, on paper, you're getting all of these things. And I'd be like, well, I'm not. I'm not getting extra time. I'm not being sent to another room, and I don't know how I'm supposed to be receiving these accommodations that legally I am supposed to have. And she's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. You're getting them. I'm like, you can't just tell me I'm getting them when I'm not. Okay, who do I talk to about getting them? And she's like, we'll talk to your teachers. So I talked to my teachers, and they're like, no, we don't do that. You need to talk to your counselor. And so I went back to my counselor. I'm like, well, my counselors are telling me to talk to you, and you're telling me to talk to my teachers. So who can you go talk to someone above you and find out who I'm supposed to talk to? And she's like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, then who do I talk to?
So here you have someone that can so advocate for themselves and still not getting the information. So if you put someone who can't advocate for themselves, they would just be stuck with no accommodations. Because Chloe could advocate, she brought it to my attention, and I had to actually write a letter so severe to the principal, to the education department, special education department, and to the district that she was not receiving her accommodations. I sent them her report card with accommodations, which was mostly A's and B's, and her, it wasn't her report card, but it was your progress report of where her grade was at 6 weeks, and she was getting F's and D's. I said, this is how important accommodations are. And actually as soon as she got them,
from A's to failing.
Yes.
It's that big of a difference.
And they addressed it very quickly once they received that letter. We had an emergency IEP meeting, I think the next day, if not 2 days later. And she received all her accommodations and wonderful accommodations, and has her second mentor in her life.
And so with ADD, you can get all these accommodations that you can get a scribe to write down for you, so you can verbally talk through your answers, because sometimes you need to talk through the process. You get someone to read the questions out loud, and so they can help you with, what does this question mean? What is it asking? So they can go, wait, that's not what it's asking. Let's figure out where the missing information is. You can get all those kind of things through having accommodations, and it will change your grade tremendously. It would show how much you actually do know, because you do know it.
I have a similar story to yours. Yeah. I was actually in private school, and I think I was still in like middle school, and I guess my teacher was like, we're no longer going to be providing you your accommodations, and I was like, what?
Oh yeah, once you start succeeding, they're like, oh, you don't need them anymore. Yeah. Like you grew out of your diagnosis.
I was really doing really well. I was getting like A's and B's, and I was like, what? Like,
yeah,
no,
we
I need
give
those
accommodations to people who have A's.
As long as when they start succeeding, they don't need them anymore, which is total misconception.
A really great point, Alex. Really great point.
And I just remember this as you guys were, and I was like, that totally happened to me.
It's a common story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was in private school, and it was a small private school, and I told my parents, I was like, well, I guess I don't need my accommodations anymore. And they're like, what do you mean you don't need your accommodations anymore? Like, you still have a learning disability. You're just doing really well because you're learning, and you're learning the way that you learn. Also, learning how you learn is a really important thing. Whether you're a visual, and I'm going off topic, but visual learner, auditory learner, kinesthetic, whatever, like, find out how you learn, because that's really important to succeeding.
We both are visual. Not everyone with ADD is visual. Not everyone with autism is visual. We tend to be a little bit more right brain, but that's not always true. So we were able to study together, and we put on our study guides, we would put little images, drawings, computer graphics, all that kind of thing to help each other out.
All out.
Yeah, we studied
I
together
still have them.
and created stuff together that was really helpful in studying, and gave each other tricks and worked together. And so a lot of this stuff crossed over to each other with our learning disabilities and how we learned.
Which was really lucky, because I would have been lost without Chloe and our study sessions, because those were we learned so much from those study sessions, probably more than we learned in class.
And I learned a lot by quizzing other people, and then she needed to be quizzed, and so we helped each other in that way.
And I liked quizzing people.
Yeah. So I'd quiz her, and she quizzed me, and that was really helpful.
Well, ADD is a common comorbidity with those with autism.
Yeah, there's a lot of dual diagnoses that have both, and there's a lot that's similar even if you don't have the dual diagnosis. Yeah.
Which I think they would have caught it by now.
Well, there's another question. Did you see?
Yeah.
Which one?
Chloe, to all your listeners who are seeking help, what is your most important message to them? I get this asked a bunch, actually. What is one thing that you want people to know about autism? And the thing is, we're always trying our best, and I think we get told a lot that we need to try harder, whether it's with those words or unintentional. It just always feels like we're being told, and I'm sure you felt that way too, that why don't you spend a little bit more time on that? Why don't you? And because they don't see how much effort you put in, right? And people don't see what happens after the party. You go to a party, right, and then it's over. When you go home, and that's when you have all that, the meltdowns, the anxiety, and so people don't see it. And so they're like, well, why don't you stay a little bit longer? Why don't you keep going? Why don't you blah, 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 blah? And it just feels so difficult to be putting in 100% and not having that discredited all the time. And so if you have autism or ADD or anxiety or OCD, I know you're trying your best. I validate that you're always putting in 100%. And I hope that gets recognized at some point. And if it doesn't, I hope you recognize that. Don't let people tell you that you're lazy, because a lot of us take on that label and go, oh yeah, we're lazy.
I thought that for the longest time that I was
because if you're told that by every single person in your life, then how can you be the only one that's right? Right?
And why would, like, if it's your parents, because it was known that my parents thought I was.
Oh, I got that message from my parents too.
Just study for 20 more minutes, and I was like, I've been studying for 3 hours, and I got a C. My brother could study for 10 minutes and get an A. He could just glance over and be like, okay, I know it now, and I was like, that's unfair. But I would compare myself to my brother, which was unhealthy, first of all. But I also didn't have the tricks and the tools and of how I needed to study, and I didn't have a partner to quiz me. And so finding what study, because studying, there's so many different ways to study.
Yeah. And
if you're studying in a way that doesn't help you learn,
then you can study forever
and not learn a thing. And of course, you know, when I was in like middle school, I only knew like 2 ways to study, which was like flashcards. And I think, that's it. I only knew 1 way to study, which was flashcards. And flashcards are great, but they don't work for me. Like I will make flashcards for other people because writing helps me. Writing things multiple times helps me. But flashcards do nothing for me. And unless I do them in a different way where I write like a 1 word.
Draw pictures on them.
We'll draw pictures, but like I'll use 1 card for the word and 1 card for the definition, and I'll match them.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So if I do it that way, then that helps me, because then I can't cheat, because I would totally like hold my card up to the light and be like, oh yeah, like I learned it because I was just so overstudying. So learning how to study in a way that helps you to learn, rather than just memorization, is key to, I would say, to really succeeding in studying.
And having a narrative helped me learn, or when it's just like memorize this fact, well, why? Why am I learning it? When there's a story to it, that helped me. I love taking something and creating something else out of it. So that's why I like my videos and my art projects and all that stuff. I would take what I learned and use it and apply it somewhere else. And through the repetition of having to take the information, write it down again and again in order to recreate it, whether it's a poem or a video or a story. In that way, I was doing it over and over and over.
Well, that's how you got into filmmaking.
And it was real, and that's how I got into film. And that made it more exciting for me to learn the information. It made it fun.
And when we would do films for English class, we learned so much through doing that.
Yeah. And we had professors that allowed us to do skits and like posters and all that kind of stuff, where they're like, take a theme from this chapter and create a poster with it. And everyone would have a different theme, even though we all read the same book, and they would have all of these things on their poster, and they'd have to explain the poster, right? And so we'd be like, oh, here's the symbols and all the different things from the book, and we made it a really cool artwork out of it that was really fun to do. And we also learned while we were doing it. And we did skits, and we did all these things that allowed us to learn in the way that we learn, because we're more kinesthetic and visual people. And it took a lot of work and a lot of time, but
it was worth it, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And
how we learn.
Yeah.
That's how we're able to still recollect stuff we learned back in middle school, high school, elementary school sometimes.
And now in college, professors, they do want you to be more creative. As a history major, professors, of course, want you to write, but they want you to be more creative in terms of how you approach presenting information. And so a lot of the times, our groups will do a short video. It won't be very good quality. It won't be anything, Steven Spielberg, but it helps us learn information, and it puts us in the mindset of history. And sometimes English professors have asked me to do stuff like that. And so we'll shoot it with an iPhone. It's nothing super spectacular, but it's learning, and it's getting your hands dirty with education. And it's helpful, and it's beneficial, and I've learned so much through doing things with different lenses and different ways of attacking a topic or a learning situation.
Okay. I want to get a little bit into social situations away from school right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking, say, processing through your thoughts and speaking out loud, or are trying to get a thought out and someone interrupts you and you lose that thought, there's all different ways that people could make you feel bad, and without realizing it. And I know I could get really defensive, especially when I was little, when people were telling me that I was interpreting them incorrectly, when they were using language that I didn't understand, tone of voice I didn't understand, because their words straight out meant something completely different from what they meant it to be. And definitions of words, everyone has it, are different. And so I said, I know a lot when I didn't know, but just because I was always told I was wrong, so I was like, I know.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I was like, you can get defensive and argue points, and that's common with ADD. And another commonality is feeling unheard and just speaking to try and feel heard. And I've noticed with you, the more I listen and I validate and go, oh, that's a good point, Alex. Oh, that's really interesting. And really question and dig deeper into what you're saying, the less you actually feel the need to speak. And there's a lot of people, even who have ADD, believe, oh, if you don't interrupt me, I'll just keep talking and talking. I don't think that's true. I think that part of that comes from my need to be heard. So do you want to talk about any of those things more in detail? I know there was a lot.
Yeah. I just ramble, and I do eventually stop talking, because I also want to hear what other people have to say. But for me, it's about getting my point across. And I just don't feel that I do that very eloquently or very straightforwardly. I'm a long-winded talker because I feel that I need the airspace to get my point across. It's not about me just wanting to talk. It's that I don't feel I'm getting my point across correctly. And it's really just me trying to get my point across, not trying to just take up all of the airspace. And I don't understand sarcasm very well. At all.
To me, when you go on those long-winded rambles, it's like I'm trying to get this thought out before it goes away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
Did I get it out? Did I say it all? I hope so.
And usually it's the last two sentences that are really important.
Yeah.
It's the first 100 sentences are unimportant. It's the last two.
And I know you get a lot of, well, bring it back to the point, bring it back to the point. And you're like, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just have to start here, but it doesn't make any sense why I'm saying this.
I can't just get to the point. There's no, for some reason I have not figured out a way around it. And for some reason Chloe puts up with it.
If you're dealing with someone with ADD, I always want to make sure that you feel comfortable to make mistakes when you talk, that you're always comfortable opening up your mouth. So I never want to be like, say something like, oh, don't say that, or I'll be like, oh, Alex, think about that for a second, that's really offensive. But I won't be like, don't talk, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a way you can say something about, oh, just think about that for a second, process what you just said, something like that, instead of, you need to be quiet right now, that's not okay to say out loud, because you're always going to say something you're always going to say something that people will be like, ugh. But it's because I think just when you speak more in general, you're going to mess up more. Where if you speak less, you're only letting like the more important thoughts out, and those ones are probably going to be less offensive. The more you talk, the more mistakes you make. And I think with ADD that can be even more extreme. But I don't think you mean every single word that comes out of your mouth either.
Definitely not.
Like, you process your thoughts the more you talk, and like the stuff near the end is more important, because those are the stuff you're thinking out. The stuff at the beginning, you're like, I'm trying to say something, it's somewhere in these piles of things.
Yeah. And if I say it, then I can recall it.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't say it, then I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, like I said, is really for me. It's really not for anyone else. I just have to say it. There's no going around it. And that's why I write things down a lot of the time too, before I talk to someone sometimes. Like, if like I had to go talk to a professor, I'll be like, okay, what do I need to talk to them about, so that I just get straight to the point. Because otherwise I'm gonna ramble and it's not gonna make any sense to them.
So are there things that you wish people didn't say to you, or wish people said more of, or like want to rephrase things for people to help you out?
In terms of what?
Like, if you were to mess up and say something, do you want to be called out on that? How would you want to be called out on that? Is there things that really upset you when people say?
Oh yeah, there are people who are like, I can't believe you would say that, and it, like, of course, you know, I'm sure I say things that are offensive, but I never mean it. It's just word vomit essentially, which is not fun for me in a sense, because it has its consequences in terms of my interactions with people. But I guess how I want people to approach it is to ask me, Alex, is that what you really meant? Like, I'm confused. What is when you said this, but I'm confused. What does this mean to you? Because my brain is so scrambled, everything's all messed up in there for a lot of things. So, and I think with anybody, you don't want to attack them, because then they're going to be on the defense. Like, if Chloe said something that, you know, I didn't understand or I didn't agree with, and I just went, that's stupid, like, and I just completely didn't validate her thought and didn't care enough to ask her what she meant, she's going to be like, well, you're stupid, like, why don't you care what I have to say? It's going, Chloe, what did you mean by that? I don't understand. And I think that's what's important for like everybody, is just clarification. Communication is always going to be hard, because everybody thinks differently and everybody understands things differently. But if you approach it in the sense that I don't understand what they're saying. Maybe they probably might have meant something else. I'm just not understanding how they're saying it. So that's how I would like people to approach it with me. And I'm sure that's how other people want to approach it, and that's how I try to approach it with other people, because I know what it feels like to be attacked, in the sense where I see something and people get upset. But they're just not understanding I'm just not saying it in a way that they can understand it.
That was clear. That was good.
I'm good. I was like, this is a long-winded explanation.
No,
because
you said it really clear.
Good. I was like, Chloe, interpret.
No, you didn't need an interpreter.
Yeah, you've been speaking really eloquently.
Oh, good. And it's all caught on camera. But yeah, so talking is good.
Yeah, speaking to your special person about how they want you to interact with them and what their boundaries are and all those kind of things is important. Everyone's different.
So is there anything you guys want to add as we wind down?
Molly said something.
She was talking about how she related to school stuff, studying and for a long time and not getting it when someone else gets it much easier, and then the type of schools.
Yeah. Well, hi, Molly. Good to see you.
Thanks for joining us. I love your comments.
Oh, there's another one. I'll look it up. See what.
Do you find society responses to you without clarity during your word vomit rudely because they base their responses on you looking normal versus disabled? I don't think people even take into account that the other person might be disabled. I think everyone really assumes everyone thinks the way I do. You know, it's like I used to assume that when I was little that everyone, I didn't know I had autism. And so I thought everyone lived a life that was pretty painful because mine was, and they just knew how to deal with it better. And I was like, how are their pain tolerance so much higher? Why am I so lazy? Why am I so fragile? It doesn't make any sense how I have a hard time leaving the house and everyone else can just deal with it. So I think everyone really thinks that everyone else thinks exactly the way they do, and so they're saying, well, if I was in that position I wouldn't say that. But to put yourself in someone else's shoes isn't what would I do in that situation, it's what would they do in that situation, because they come from a different background, a different way of thinking, a way of looking at the world, and so they're not going to make the same decisions you would. And so I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is they're not even thinking about the realm of ADD, autism, all those kind of things. And so when they see you making those comments, they think that your thought process is just as strong or as deep as theirs, when it's not. It's word vomit.
I agree, Chloe. Hi, Stacy. It's Gail here in the background. Stacy went to high school with me. But I do think that when people do know that you have autism, ADD, whatever else, if they do know, they do relate to you differently. Yeah. And they do have, well, not everybody. Well, I think some people have more patience.
You have to explain more than I have autism. Yes. You have to explain what it is. Because again, there's a lot of misconceptions about both things. Like there is the misconception that you just get distracted by shiny things in school, right?
which is true, but there's other things that go along with it. And just to piggyback on what Gail and Chloe are saying, it's thinking about how other people think and thinking about how other people think and trying to understand where they're coming from rather than just jumping to conclusions.
And like everyone,
which we're all guilty of.
Everyone, even with ADD, is different. And so
Yeah, I'm not the
Like-
poster child for people with ADD.
Well, there's a famous saying: if you've met one person with autism,
Yeah.
you've met one person
Yeah,
with
and it's
autism.
the same thing with ADD. It's the same
Exactly.
thing with most things. We're all different.
Mhm.
And so if you're like, well, my friend who has ADD doesn't do that. Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
well, there's also different, there's ADHD, ADD, which I think are being combined into a spectrum now.
Which is shocking to me because, you know, since I've been diagnosed, I've been following it, like, not following it, but like I've, you know, been part of the storyline. So now that it's changing, it's like, that's not what I grew up with. So I also have to adapt to the language of what it means to have ADD, ADHD, whatever they're going to call it.
The ever-changing names.
The ooh, shiny, sparkly disorder. And what language is more appropriate to use now.
Society is so worried about what's next rather than what's here now. Yeah, I think a big part of dealing with my autism is focusing on the present instead of what might be or trying to change the past. I can only deal with the present and making it better now and facing these problems now. And I know like a lot of people with late diagnosis, oh, I wish I had been diagnosed earlier so life could have been easier earlier and so I wouldn't have to deal with all these things now. But like that's what it is. And so dealing with that present and changing it now and dealing with things and accepting things now is really important. Staying in the present and not worrying and having anxiety about, oh, tomorrow this might happen, that might happen. I might encounter someone who doesn't know how to deal with autism. Well, that's not now. That's tomorrow. And if someone does do that, then you deal with it then. But trying to deal with every single outcome that could possibly happen, it's you can't. And so, but there is a lot of anxiety because your past shows that it is a pattern of how people react, that they aren't as accepting as you'd want them to be, that there are a lot of ignorant people out there who are rude and think that they know things they don't. And so it's hard to not have anxiety about that in the future.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I go through that.
So do you have any final comments about living with ADD? It's fine if you don't.
I guess the one thing that I would say is that there are people who ask me all the time, like, do I wish I didn't? Like you brought up, like how you wouldn't wish your autism away. I wouldn't wish my ADD, ADHD, whatever they're gonna call it, away because I don't know what it's like, first of all, to not have it. So that would be scary for me if I didn't have it because I'm so used to I'm comfortable with how my brain works.
I just wish other people were better about it. I don't want to change me. I want to change the world.
But I have it, and there are times where it frustrates me, but it's who I am, and it's part of what makes me who I am, and I'm pretty happy with myself at the moment. So, no, I would never wish it away. That's my closing.
All right, thanks for watching Starlight Talks. If you want Alex back, please let us know. We'll try to get her back on. If you want to know more about ADD, I would suggest heading over to the channel I have linked, How to ADHD.
Or you can private message me.
Or you can private message out. She's tagged in the description box.
Yeah.
And there's also information about the bullet journal if you are interested in how that works. So there's a link to that website. And I think How to ADHD also has a few videos on the bullet journal if you need to watch a video on it. and it connects it very nicely to the ADHD world. Thank you for watching. Check out the OurTism website. You'll see writings from myself on there about living with autism. We have support groups, we have social groups, and we have life coaching about how to take individuals like us and reach our goals.
And I actually do the life map, life coaching, and it works for me because it helps me put my thoughts together and prioritize what's important. So it's not just for people with autism.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Next week, Charlie will be back. We'll be talking about big changes in life. Dealing with big changes, that's the big one. All right. See you next Wednesday. Bye. Stay colorful.